Hey, this is the Apsara Tales channel where we share real stories with unexpected twists. If you enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and give it a like. It really helps our channel grow. Now let's dive into the story. My name is Zane. I'm 22 and I've been a delivery guy for a little over 2 years now. It started out as a temporary job. Something to get by, cover some bills. I didn't go to college. Never saw the point really. I always figured if I wanted something, I should go out and earn it myself. No debt, no waiting, just work, save, move forward. That's always been my thing. I live in a small rented house on the edge of town. 2 rooms, old wooden floors that creak when I walk, and a heater that barely works in the winter. But it's mine. Well rented, but still. It's quiet. It's simple, and I like living alone. My ride, a beat-up motor scooter. It's not much, but it gets me where I need to go. Every day, I load up deliveries and hit the road. Packages, flowers, groceries, even dog food. You name it. People usually greet me with a smile, and I give them one back. I don't know. I just like it. I like the rhythm of the day. I like meeting strangers. I like seeing slices of other people's lives just for a second, then riding off to the next one. Anyway, this one day started off like any other. Forecast said rain in the afternoon, and the sky already looked like it had something to say. I had a few stops left, and one of them was to this address in a neighborhood I didn't usually go to, kind of tucked away behind some big pine trees. I got there just as the first drops started tapping the plastic on my scooter's handlebar. I parked, grabbed the small box, and jogged up the steps. Knocked once. The door opened a few seconds later. She stood there barefoot on hardwood floors, blonde hair pulled back loosely, no makeup, wearing a light blue sweater that somehow looked like it was made for rainy days. She must have been around 30, maybe just a bit younger, but carried this calm, quiet kind of beauty. Her name wasn't on the package, just initials, but I asked if she was expecting it, and she nodded. I handed it to her, and she smiled, signed for it, and paid. I turned to go. But by then the sky had opened up completely. I mean, pouring. One of those rains that soaks you in 10 seconds flat. I stood there frozen for a moment, not sure if I should run for it or wait out on her porch. Then she said, "You can come in if you want, just until it stops raining." I hesitated. I don't usually do that. It's not standard. You deliver. You leave. You move on. But it was really coming down. Like windshield wipers can't keep up rain. So I nodded only for a minute. I said, "Try not to sound awkward." She stepped aside and I walked in. It smelled like tea and wood polish inside. Simple place, cozy, a sleeping dog on a throw blanket near the couch. Soft jazz playing from a small speaker in the corner. She offered me tea or water. I politely declined. "I'm good, thanks," I said. "Just going to wait a bit." I sat on the edge of the chair closest to the door, jacket dripping onto the floor. I was trying not to make a mess. She sat across from me and smiled. "So, do you always get caught in storms, or is today special?" She joked. I laughed. "Honestly, it's kind of my thing lately." That broke the ice. She asked if deliveries were all I did. I said, yeah, that I liked it. She didn't judge, just nodded. Asked about hobbies, music, stuff like that. I told her I liked old films, fixing up electronics, and going on late-night rides when the city was quiet. She told me her name was Marissa. She worked from home doing nails. Mostly private clients, mostly women. She had been on her own for a while now. The dog was her best company most days. We talked about little things about nothing, but it felt real. You ever have one of those talks where nothing said that deep, but it still feels meaningful? Yeah, that. Eventually, the rain started to fade, softened to a drizzle, then just stopped. I stood up and thanked her again. She smiled, walked over to the counter, grabbed a sticky note and scribbled something. She handed it to me. "If you ever get bored," she said, "you can text me." I looked at the note, just her number, and a little smiley face drawn at the bottom, like something a high school girl would have done. But it didn't feel childish. It felt honest. I tucked the note into my jacket pocket and nodded. "I might just do that," I said, and I left. Back on the scooter, the road was still wet, but the sky had started clearing. Sun peeked through the clouds like it had just remembered it existed. I had 3 deliveries left, but all I could think about was the woman with the warm house, the sleepy dog, and the note in my pocket. It had been a week since I last saw Marissa. 7 days, but it felt longer. I kept going over that moment in my head. Her handing me the note, the smiley face, the way she said, "You can text me." It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't some move. It felt nice, natural, like something kind people do when they actually mean it. I didn't text. It wasn't because I didn't want to. I just didn't want to seem like some guy who reads too much into a polite gesture. I mean, she was older, more put together. She owned her own place. She had a business, a dog, a car. Meanwhile, I was riding around town on a scooter with duct tape on the mirror and hoping it wouldn't rain. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. It was my day off. Sunday, I had nowhere to be. No deliveries, no obligations. I'd already done the laundry and cleaned the tiny kitchen. I was sitting on the worn-out couch in my place, watching the ceiling fan spin and thinking about what to do with the rest of the day. And then I pulled the sticky note out of the drawer where I'd put it. I stared at her number for a solid minute. Then I picked up my phone, hovered my thumb over the keypad, and finally hit call. She picked up after the second ring. "Hello." Her voice was exactly how I remembered it. Calm, smooth, like it belonged in a room filled with warm lamps and soft music. "Hey," I said a little too fast. "It's Zane, the delivery guy from last week." There was a pause and then "Zane, I was wondering if you'd ever call." My stomach flipped. We talked for a few minutes. Just small things. How the weather had been nice lately. How her dog Ollie was acting extra clingy that morning. I told her I had the day off and wasn't sure what to do with it. "That's funny," she said. I was about to go on a little drive outside the city, just somewhere green. I hesitated. "You want to come?" she asked casually. "It's nothing big, just a reset." She told me to come by her place and that we'd take her car. "It's not fancy," she laughed. "But it runs better than your scooter, I bet." She wasn't wrong. I'd thrown a clean t-shirt, packed a small cooler with 2 sandwiches, a couple of water bottles, and some crackers. Nothing impressive, just something simple. I didn't have a proper picnic basket, so I used an old grocery tote. 20 minutes later, I was knocking on her door again. Marissa opened it with that same welcoming look. She was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a light jacket, hair pulled back. No makeup. Still stunning. "Glad you came," she said. Ollie barked once from inside, but didn't seem too interested this time. "I guess I've been accepted." We loaded in her car, a dusty silver SUV that looked 10 years old, but ran like it just left the lot. She had a pair of sunglasses on the dash, music queued up, Fleetwood Mac, actually, and a half-eaten pack of gum in the cup holder. It already felt comfortable. We drove out of the city. The buildings gave way to trees and wide open roads. We didn't talk much at first, just pointed out the occasional farm, a hawk flying low, some cows grazing by the fence line. It was peaceful. Not the kind of silence that feels heavy, just the kind that makes you breathe a little easier. After about 40 minutes, we pulled off to a small clearing near a hiking trail. It was the kind of place you'd only know about if someone brought you there. "This used to be my dad's favorite spot," she said as she grabbed a blanket from the back seat. "He used to come here to fish. There's a tiny creek down there." We spread the blanket near a patch of trees and sat down. I pulled out my cooler and handed her one of the sandwiches. She laughed. "You actually packed food? That's adorable." "Don't expect gourmet," I said. "It's literally turkey and cheese." "It's perfect," she said and took a bite. The sun came out fully and the breeze was just enough to keep it from getting hot. We sat there for what felt like hours just talking. She told me more about herself, how she started doing nails because it gave her freedom, how she'd been in a long relationship that ended a couple years back, how she didn't regret any of it, but also wasn't in a hurry to get into anything again. I listened, asked questions, told her about growing up in a small apartment with my mom and little brother, how I never really had a plan, just kept moving forward, working, living. "You're kind of an old soul," she said after a while. I didn't know if that was a compliment or not, but I took it as one. When the sun started to dip a bit, we packed up. She handed me the blanket to fold. As we loaded the car, she looked at me and said, "Thanks for coming." I'm not sure I would have gone if you hadn't. I smiled. Same. We drove back in the fading light, talking about favorite movies, random childhood memories, weird delivery stories. She laughed a lot. I did too. It didn't feel like a first hangout. It felt like catching up with someone I'd somehow already known. She dropped me off at my place. Next time, she said, I'm bringing the food. You're planning it next time. I asked, half joking. She smirked. Guess you'll have to wait and see. I waved as she pulled away. Back inside, I sat on my bed, still holding the tote bag. I stared at the blank wall in front of me and felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Hope. Things started to change after that day in the woods. Not in some dramatic fireworks way, just slowly, naturally, like water rising in a glass. You don't notice it at first, and then one day you look and realize it's almost full. After a little picnic, we started texting more. Not constantly, just enough. Sometimes she'd send a photo of Ollie curled up with one of her clients' shoes or a quick, "You'd hate this song, but I love it." I'd reply with pictures from the road. Me in the rain again. Weird lawn decorations I saw on deliveries, or a picture of my soggy sandwich when I forgot to pack it properly. We didn't try to be anything. We just were. She lived her life. I live mine. But our paths kept overlapping. And after a few weeks, that turned into weekend walks with Ollie, evening coffee runs, lazy Sunday afternoons watching movies at her place. I never brought up what we were doing. Neither did she. And then one night she did. It was a Friday. I'd had a long day. Rain again, of course. And she texted, "You hungry?" I made too much. I was already halfway through microwaving leftover pasta at home, but I threw it back in the fridge and got on my scooter. She opened the door barefoot in sweatpants and an old college hoodie. Her hair was tied up messily, and she had a spoon in her mouth when she greeted me. "You made it just in time," she said, pulling the spoon out. "The soup's actually edible." Inside smelled like garlic and rosemary. There were candles burning on the windowsill. Not fancy ones, just little tea lights. Ollie gave me a quick sniff and went back to his spot near the radiator. We ate on the couch with bowls balanced on our knees, watching a rerun of some cooking show where the contestants kept failing the same dessert. At some point, the power flickered just for a second. Then it went out completely. Marissa looked over at me in the dark. "You break it?" she asked. I laughed. "I only deliver packages, not electricity." She lit a few more candles from the drawer. The light flickered across her face. And in that moment, something about the silence, about the absence of background noise, made everything feel sharper, more real. She sat down again, a little closer this time. She didn't say anything, just looked at me for a second longer than usual. Then she said, "You know, I wasn't expecting you to become part of my life, right?" I nodded, not really knowing what to say. "I mean, you were just a delivery guy." "A nice one, sure, but still." I smiled. "And now," she exhaled like she was trying to figure that out too. "Now, I don't know, but I like it." I looked at her. The candlelight made her eyes look even softer. There was a vulnerability there I hadn't seen before. Not weakness, but honesty. And something inside me leaned forward before I did. We kissed. It wasn't rushed or messy or desperate. It was slow, gentle, familiar, like we were finally saying something we hadn't found the words for. When we pulled back, she rested her head lightly on my shoulder. "I didn't think I'd want this again," she whispered. "Not after the last time." "You don't have to rush anything," I said quietly. "I know. I don't want to overthink it. I just want to feel it." And that's exactly what we did. From that night on, things shifted. We didn't make grand declarations. We didn't call each other boyfriend or girlfriend. We didn't tell anyone. We just kept living, but now a little closer, a little more intentionally. She dropped by my place after work some nights with dinner in to-go containers. I'd show up with flowers from a roadside stand on her porch. Sometimes we wouldn't even hang out. We'd just talk for a bit and then go back to our own evenings. It was easy, and somehow that made it even more meaningful. A couple of months passed. The season started to turn. The trees went from green to orange. And I started wearing my old hoodie under my delivery jacket. The days got shorter, but the time I spent with Marissa felt longer. One evening, we were walking Ollie around her neighborhood. The wind was chilly and the sidewalks were littered with leaves. She reached over and slipped her hand in mine without saying anything. I looked at her. "You cold?" I asked. "No," she said, "just wanted to." That was the first time I realized I wasn't just falling for her. I already had. And when I looked over and saw the way her lips curled up slightly without looking at me, I knew she felt the same. Still, there was a quiet kind of hesitation between us. We hadn't talked about what this meant, about the future, about the space between 22 and 30, or what people might think. But we didn't need to talk about it yet. Because in that moment, it wasn't about labels or years or logic. It was about this two people walking slowly down a street, crunching leaves underfoot with nothing to prove and no one to impress. We just were, and it felt exactly right. It had been about a year since the day I delivered that package in the rain. I was still working deliveries, still living in that same creaky little house on the edge of town, though I wasn't there much anymore. Most of my evenings and some mornings, too, I spent at Marissa's. Her place felt more like home than mine ever had. Not just because it was bigger, cleaner, or better furnished, but because she was there. We never had some big talk about what we were. We didn't need to. We cooked together. We fed Ollie together. We argued about what to watch and never agreed. She'd leave notes in my jacket pockets. I'd fix broken cabinet doors or squeaky hinges around her house without saying anything. That's what we were, a quiet rhythm reel. A few times she hinted at me moving in permanently. She never pushed, just said things like, "You know you spend more time here than at your place, right? Or if you had a key, you wouldn't have to wait out here like a stranger." Eventually, I just stopped going home altogether. My clothes were in her drawers. My toothbrush sat next to hers. Even Ollie started barking less when I walked in. That's when I knew I was in. Then one evening, while we were eating leftover stir-fry on the couch, she said, "My parents are coming into town next weekend. They want to meet you." I froze mid-bite. Her parents, I hadn't really thought about them. I knew they existed. She mentioned them a few times, but it never felt urgent. Marissa didn't talk much about her family. She wasn't estranged or anything, just distant. Said they were traditional, reserved, the kind of people who thought every decision needed a spreadsheet. "You don't have to come," she said, sensing my reaction. "I just thought maybe it's time." "No, I want to," I said, and I meant it. "I just hope they don't hate me." She smiled. "They won't." I wasn't so sure. The following Saturday, we spent the entire morning cleaning the house, even though it was already spotless. Marissa changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a simple blouse and jeans. I ironed my one button-down shirt and tried to remember everything she'd told me about them. When her parents arrived, I heard their voices before I saw them. Her mom's was sharp and precise. Her dad's was deep controlled. They walked in and shook my hand. Her dad, Douglas, looked me up and down like he was trying to estimate my net worth with his eyes. Her mom, Elaine, gave a polite smile, but her eyes stayed cold. We all sat down in the living room. Marissa brought out coffee and some pastries from the bakery down the street. For the first few minutes, it was small talk: where I was from, how long I'd lived in the city, what I did. I told them about deliveries, that I liked it, that it paid enough to cover life, and that I wasn't the kind of guy who needed much. I tried to explain how I liked the simplicity, the people, the movement. I thought I was doing okay until her father said, "And what exactly is the long-term plan, Zane?" I paused. "I'm not sure yet," I answered honestly. "But I work hard. I don't waste time, and I care about your daughter." He nodded slowly. "Work ethic is important, but so is vision," Elaine added. "Marissa's always had high standards. We just hope she remembers that." That stung, but I didn't say anything. Marissa did. "She knows exactly what she's doing," she said, looking at them directly. "And I know what I'm doing too." There was an awkward silence after that. Her parents stayed another half hour, asked more surface-level questions, and then left. The second the door closed, Marissa sighed and sat down on the arm of the couch. "Well, that could have gone better." "They didn't like me," I said, not asking. "They don't know you," she replied. "They just see a number, an age, a job title." I sat beside her, staring at the floor. "I get it, though. I'm younger. I don't have a degree. I'm not impressive on paper. She turned to me. I didn't fall in love with a resume. That hit me. She continued, I chose you. Not because you're some project, not because I'm lonely, but because you make me feel safe. Because you make me laugh. Because I don't have to pretend around you. That's what matters to me. I didn't say anything right away. I just reached for her hand and held it. The next few days were quiet. She didn't hear much from her parents, which wasn't surprising. They sent a thank you text for the coffee. That was it. But something had changed. Not between us, but around us. We were no longer just two people who found each other in the rain. We were a real thing with pressure, with expectations, with people who didn't understand, and we still chose each other. One evening, about a week after the visit, we sat on the porch. It was late, the sky was clear, and the only sound was Ollie snoring inside. She turned to me and said, I've been thinking. I want you to officially move in. I know you basically live here already, but I want it to be ours, not just mine. I nodded. Yeah, I want that too. And I don't care what my parents think, she added. They had their shot at happiness. This is mine. So, we started moving things around. I brought my few boxes from the old house, my tools, my clothes, a box of DVDs I'd probably never watch again, but couldn't throw away. It wasn't a huge change, but it felt like a new chapter when we were writing ourselves. It's been almost 3 years since I first delivered that package. Sometimes I still think about that moment. The rain, the hesitation, the way Marissa looked at me when she opened the door. How something so small, so ordinary, turned into the beginning of everything. Now, as I sit on the back steps of the house we share, I'm surrounded by things that used to be hers, but are now ours. A pair of my muddy boots next to her gardening shoes. Ollie's leash hooked next to my spare helmet. When she picked out tools. I fixed the shed with a hammock we've both fallen asleep in more than once. We're not rich. We're not flashy, but we're solid. We're real. After I moved in, life didn't magically get easier. We still had our differences. She liked to plan everything. I was more go with the flow. She'd get anxious if the fridge was low on groceries. I forget to even check. She liked Sunday mornings quiet with tea. I like music playing while making eggs. But somehow it worked. We grew into each other. I kept working deliveries for a while. Eventually, I picked up some side work fixing small appliances. It started with a neighbor's coffee maker, then a friend's microwave, then someone's bike. Turned out word of mouth was better than advertising. I built a small client base. Nothing big, just enough to feel like I was building something of my own. Marissa supported it completely. She even helped me make a website. Simple but clean. She said, if we're doing life together, let's do it right. We weren't in a rush to get married. Honestly, we didn't even talk about it for a while. It wasn't because we didn't love each other. We did deeply, but we were living our version of commitment. Already. We shared space, bills, holidays, decisions, and we knew exactly what we had. Still, after 2 years together, on a quiet evening in early fall, I asked. It wasn't a big proposal. No ring hidden in a dessert or hot air balloon or orchestra in the park. Just us on the couch, Ollie snoring at our feet, some stupid movie playing in the background. I looked at her and said, you want to get married? She blinked. That's how you're asking? I smiled. You want something flashier? She smiled back. No, that's perfect. So we did. It wasn't a huge wedding. Just a handful of close friends, some neighbors, and her cousin who played guitar during the ceremony. Her parents didn't come. They sent a formal card. That was their way, I guess. But Marissa didn't let it ruin anything. She stood beside me, eyes steady, voice clear, and said, I do. Like she'd already been saying it every day for years. We danced in her aunt's backyard under string lights. We drank wine from mismatched glasses. We laughed until we cried. And that night, lying beside her in bed, I felt something I'd never felt before. Absolute stillness. Not emptiness, peace. That's how I knew. Now we live the kind of life you don't really see in movies. But it's real. It's waking up early and arguing about who left the light on. It's grocery lists and vet appointments. It's learning how to apologize, how to listen, how to make space for each other, even on the worst days. A few months ago, she sat across from me at the kitchen table. looked down at her hands, and said quietly, "I've been thinking maybe I want to be a mom." I didn't say anything at first, not because I was scared, but because I didn't expect to feel so calm hearing it. A younger me would have panicked. But sitting there watching her twist the ring on her finger, I just smiled. "Then let's talk about it," I said. "Nothing's decided yet. We're not rushing, but we're talking. We're dreaming together." Looking back, I used to think life only started once you figured everything out. Once you had a plan, a degree, a career, a 5-year strategy. But now I know the truth. Sometimes life starts with a knock at the door during a rainstorm. When you're just trying to finish your route and get home before your socks are soaked. Sometimes the most important people walk into your story when you're not trying to write anything at all. I didn't plan on falling in love that day. I didn't plan on staying. But she asked me, "Can you stay until it stops raining?" And I guess I never